news. Perhaps you were already asleep last night when the news broke that North Carolina has fired its head basketball coach, Hubert Davis, less than a week after a stunning loss to VCU in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Davis spent 5 seasons in Chapel Hill, finishes his tenure with 2 straight exits in the round of 64. He led Carolina to the title game in his first year. Remember that? They beat Duke in the Final Four in Coach K's final ever game. But since then, he keeps getting knocked out early. Those exits at the beginning are as many as all other Carolina coaches combined since the tournament expanded to 64 teams in 1985. So my uncle Seth Greenberg, no relation, is up with us early here this morning. Just before we get to who might be next in line, Seth, just quick reaction. What is your take on Carolina making this decision?
Carolina has a right to make a move in terms of their coaching staff. It's not how they did it, to me, that bothers me. And what I explain by that, I mean, is like they knew they were going to make a change. Like the Carolina way, the standard of North Carolina basketball, 3 or 4 years, you can either not get the tournament or not advance in the tournament, deep into the tournament. And you know what? You have the right to make a change, but you don't have a right to leave Hubert Davis hanging out for a full week. You don't have the right to have a narrative like, give us a plan moving forward, and then a week later decide to make that decision. Carolina basketball, it's special. They expect to advance in the NCAA tournament. They don't expect to be in the first 4. They don't expect to get knocked out in the first round. But I'm going to give you the one caveat, Greeny. They were 19-5 with Caleb Wilson, with wins over Kansas, Kentucky, and Duke. On their way maybe to a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8. So my one caveat to that is, you know what? I wish they would have taken that into consideration.
Yeah, life is not always fair, and it may not have been fair to Hubert Davis, but one way or another, the decision has been made, and Carolina's blood is as blue as it possibly gets. Our Pete Thamel was on the radio yesterday, and he was throwing around huge names, suggesting that they will at least make calls to people like, I wrote them down, Brad Stevens and Billy Donovan and Dusty May. Where would you expect Carolina to be looking for its next coach?
Yeah, Billy Donovan makes sense. Whomever they hire, they got to give them the infrastructure. They got to give them $12 to $14 million in rev share. They got to give them all the resources that they need in terms of coaching staff, general managers, and support staff. But I think Billy Donovan, maybe with everything that's going on in Chicago, they better hire someone who understands the business of college basketball. It's very different than the business of the NBA, although the NBA background is worthwhile with the salaries. But to me, Mark Byington is going to end up a name being mentioned. TJ Otzelberger and how hard their teams play, how competitive they are. I don't think they're going to move a Todd Golden. I don't think they're going to move a Nate Oates. I think that's the one thing people realize. They tried to replace John Calipari. They settled on Mark Pope. Think about that.
It's going to be really interesting to watch this over the next couple of days and weeks. Seth, we'll get back to you. Thanks for checking in early this morning on short notice. So from college basketball to college football, sort of. Today is Ty Simpson's time. Mocked him 26 in round 1. I have seen him mocked to go considerably earlier than that. We have Mike Tannenbaum, who's a former general manager here observing, Dan Orlovsky, our quarterback expert, and Kimberly Martin, our insider. And I want to start with you, K-Mart, as you are talking to people around the league. There's so much conversation about Ty Simpson, who is clearly, I don't know if you're in the middle of any of it or not,
no.
But there's so much conversation on the outside, right? On talk shows and fans and
It's draft season. We're going to be talking and we're going to be dissecting these guys. And I've talked to a lot of GMs and talent evaluators and scouts about Ty Simpson. And even ones who tell me, guys, that they think Ty may be more talented, they still think Mendoza's going number 1. And they've told me I would take Mendoza number 1. The big sticking point with Ty Simpson that I've heard has been he's had really good moments whole game where those sort of like, what are you doing types of games. And that's the sticking point for a lot of these talent evaluators. So when I asked one of them, I asked a front office exec, okay, and this is an exec whose team is picking in the top 10. I said, if you were going to take Ty Simpson, how do you ensure that he is successful? He told me you make sure that you have playmakers around him. You make sure you have a really strong running game so it's not all on his shoulders. He could be as good as Sam Darnold or as bad as we've seen Sam Darnold be in his career. And I think that's sort of the range that talent evaluators have to sort of sort through.
Mike T, I think that general managers in general there's some boxes they like to check. There are some safe things. So big, tall, strong, has the better arm, won the championship, won the Heisman. Those are all easy boxes to check off. Ty Simpson doesn't check those boxes. He's 6'1". He only has 15 starts. There are a lot of reasons that he becomes the riskier pick. But when you evaluate him, again, take the comparison between the two of them out of the conversation. When you evaluate him, is he a high first-round pick? Is he worthy of going in the first half of round one?
He absolutely is. And ironically, Greeny, I answered that question a decade ago. Mark Sanchez had 16 starts, and we traded up from 17 to 5. And what was weird about Mark was his lack of experience didn't show up till later in his career, not earlier in his career. So Ty Simpson, to me, is a really good thrower of the ball. He could get the ball down the field. I think one of the things that hurt him this year, guys, was Alabama wasn't as talented as they were in the past. You look at this combine workout, and this is a small sample set. He threw the ball down the field, outside the numbers, with accuracy, anticipation, and good arm strength. Look, the pro day isn't hugely consequential, but if he does that again today at 6'1", Greeny, that does matter.
I feel like that was where this momentum began. Again, draft season for me starts in September because I do this podcast. There was a moment in the season where Ty Simpson was as high up as you could possibly be, and then later in the season things started to fall. But then when he was willing to throw it at the combine, and he did so well there, and now he does it today, that's when I feel like this elevation began. Obviously, you think he's a very good prospect. Tell us what you were seeing and show us what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think today, just speaking about his pro day, I think the thing that will be talked about walking away from, and I don't believe that pro days are all that important, but I promise you people are going to be surprised about how the ball pops off of his hands. He will rip the football. I think a couple things that I love about him, I always say, do they play with fast eyes? He's staring to his right now, it's not there. This is real life in the NFL. Muddy pocket, people talk about pressure for a quarterback. Falling back, that's on third down, getting to the backside receiver. I think one of my favorite plays this year is against Vanderbilt. Again, in a situation where he has to start on one side of the football and work all the way to the back. He wants to work to the bottom of the screen on a ball fake. The defender kind of on the hash takes that throw away. It's not there. He has to reset all the way back from the left to the right. Fast eyes, meaning do you see things incredibly quick? I think we couch that as how do you process? I think the way that you process shows on tape. And I would talk about I guess I know we're not comparing the players, but I do think it's a traits versus tape decision. I believe that Ty Simpson's tape is better. He doesn't have the traits that Fernando Mendoza does. And you are going to have to, as an organization, make the determination. Him not having some of those physical traits or starts, is that a yes or no for you?
Right.
And I can understand if you walk away saying no. I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. The same thing that I said, but you're saying it better, which is, you check some boxes, and he doesn't always check all of those. So how early do you see him going? If you're projecting, you're looking at the teams, because Field Yates projected the Cardinals trading back into the end of round one.
Ideal.
To take him at 26.
Ideal.
You think he's still there at 26?
No chance. And here's why. I think it's the top half of the first round because of the demand. And people can disagree with Dan. Look, I have Mendoza 1. I like Simpson as well. Both things can be true. But, Greeny, when you look at it, here are the 7 teams that realistically could take a quarterback. Arizona, they're not going to take him at 3. They could trade back. Same thing with Cleveland at 6. Miami at 11, even though they have Malik Willis, that's still a possibility. The Rams, to me, are really interesting at 13. Jets, Vikings, and the Steelers at 21. One of those 7 teams, to me, makes sense to take Ty Simpson in the first round.
You like any of those? Any of that jump out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I love Arizona. I've been adamant about that. I think Minnesota is absolutely in play, and I know people think because of the Kyler addition, it's not. The Rams, I absolutely love. The Rams, I subscribe to thinking, God, you go win the Super Bowl this year. I think Miami's in the conversation. The Jets with their, the Browns with their second pick in the first round, I think make a ton of sense. The Jets do as well. So, yeah.
Let me just push back on one thing. Like, think about the Green Bay Packers over the last 30 years. Yeah. Go win the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford this year.
Rams.
Yeah. And then draft Ty Simpson, and there's your lineage. Like, win for today and build a championship for tomorrow.
Quick final word.
Heard the same thing, but I've heard he can go as late as 21 is to the Steelers.
So somewhere in that range. He'll be. The expectation is he will be a first-round pick, and that will be a great show. Speaking of great shows, the greatest show in his sport was back last night.